Greetings everyone, my name is Prism and I'm here to talk about my draft I did for the internal Lightmare Studio Rift Run tournament. I'm still new to the game, so I don't have the most intimate knowledge of which cards are the best. I have a simple plan of going into the draft by picking cards I think have good stats for the cost, or picking from factions that I know the general strategy of, so I can form simple 1-2 combos. That's why I went for Devil of Despair for my first pick. I know having a commander that can enable discard synergy starting turn 1 could be pretty good. For my second pick, I ended up going with Ghosts of the Ancestors, since having a guaranteed turn 1 play felt kind of good, since I thought having an aggressive to mid-range curve would help me find victory. I imagine the Rift Run meta to be somewhat more combat-centric and more aggressive, so that's why I leaned heavily on the Ghost. For my final commander pick, I wound up going with the Recurring Nightmare. I know Sleepers of Avarok oftentimes like getting into the graveyard ASAP, and Devil of Despair can enable that pretty easily starting turn 1. In addition to getting me access to the Sleeper faction, having a recursive 4 resource threat seems like it could be nice to fill any missed curve opportunities in the mid to late game. From there, the rest of my draft is fairly self-explanatory. Part of me wanted to go with either the converted prototype for more general stats, or G's plea for refuel, even if it might be too slow. I ended up going with the plea though, because I thought with the Recurring Nightmare, I will probably always have something to do for 4 resources. After that, my next couple of picks are pretty simple. I go with the Infected Pack Leader because those stats seem pretty good for the cost, and I don't have any big reanimation synergy yet for Buried Below. Similarly, Unstable Demon seems like it has good stats for the cost and is aggressive. Unfortunately, this fourth pick doesn't seem that good, but I end up with Guy of the Week because at worst, I can get a bunch of 4/4s out of one card, and I could potentially use the Devil of Despair to improve them into a 6/6. For this fifth pick, I saw G Ascended and saw what felt like it could be a draft bomb. A 4 resource 6/10 flyer with an effect to destroy your curve and spawn a bunch of strong evasive bodies seems like it could be a potent finisher. Still, it was up against Eaten by Zombies, which I know is a pretty strong removal option that can also double as a threat creation. Still, I end up with G Ascended since I want to be proactive, but this pick was pretty close though. This sixth pick took a while for me to decide since I was looking mainly at the stats, and Spirit Guide and Frenzy Monstrosity were fairly close. I ended up going with Monstrosity since it could have the Exile discard synergy and the morale was a bit lower. The next couple of picks I kind of zoomed through. Balanced Warrior starts off as an 8/8 for 3, which seems alright. Defiant Monk is the cheapest option there, and I'm still trying to get a guaranteed early curve. Part of me wanted Vanash, but I already had a discard enabler in my commander, so I ended up going for Infectious Zombie. Demon of Solitude seemed like it could be a strong pick since I knew I could aim to keep my hand size small with my commander. I'm kind of stuck deciding between Demonic Disciple and Agent Coil. While Demonic Disciple does work really well with discard synergies and fills out an early curve, my early turns are usually stuck between playing Ghost of the Ancestors or pitching cards with Devil of Despair. After that, I decided to go with another Recurring Nightmare, because at worst, it can be a simple fodder for Devil of Despair, and at best, it could pair with my Recurring Nightmare commander, past turn 8 for 2 recursive Recurring Nightmare threats. Afterwards, I'm stuck deciding if I want to get either a cheap cantrip with Drag Down, or if I want another 4 resource creature that has better stats for the cost than my other cards. Ultimately, I go with Glorious Warrior rather than Drag Down, because I want to have more threats than I do Cycle. Next pick is simple. I see Demon of Solitude, I picked Demon of Solitude. Demonic Disciples seems like the most alright options out of these 4. Then I'm stuck with wanting either Demon of Solitude or Risen of Avarok, since the Risen works really well with Devil of Despair on turn 1. But outside that specific synergy, I stick with my gut and say, see Demon of Solitude, pick Demon of Solitude. From my limited knowledge, all these picks seem kinda lame, so I end up using my first reroll. If I was forced to pick between these 4, I probably would have ended up going with Sky Reaper. After this reroll, I do end up going with Daniel Money, since he seems like he could be a good curve topper and has a fairly potent aggressive effect if I manage to land an attack with him. While Lance of Jinhai seems like a good buff to enable some surprise trades, I go with Infected Monk, since having 2 strong bodies for 3 resources seems like a good deal. For the next pick, I'm deciding between Infectious Zombie or another Agent Coil, but I go with Coil since I'm kind of loaded on cards that cost 3 or less. After this decision, I kind of zoomed through the next picks again because it seems self-explanatory. I like Eaten by Zombies since the other cards seem really bad, and I kind of skipped over one Eaten by Zombies before. I don't want to do that again. Afterwards, I go with Bloodthirsty Dead because it seems like the least bad option of the four. And Risen of Avarak synergizes with Devil of Despair and is already alright without it. Over here, I decide if I want no more heroes and want to check which my commanders are unique. After seeing none are unique, I go with no more heroes as a potential blowout card. These picks afterwards seems kind of lame, so I go with Denial of Reason since it could potentially be strong instead of a bit of removal. Once again, I pick another Balance Warrior because it starts off as an 8/8 for 3. The Demon Waste is pretty much a premium card with my Devil of Despair. Unstable Demon is another curve topper at 6 mana. Raise Dead seems like it could be good if the game goes late enough, or if I pitch an expensive creature to Devil Despair early on. For this pick, I'm stuck between deciding Avarak, Mastermind, Drag Down, and Reroll. I ended up going with Drag Down since it's a good cantrip at worst, and an answer to a flying creature and a cantrip at best. Here I insta-pick Abandoned Symbiote since it's a late game bomb, and I have the slight chance to cheat it out with Raise Dead, or to combo it with Devil of Despair. This next pick, I go with Mark of the Demon since it will either be good early removal or a buff to my many demons. For this pick, I go with the second Drag Down since an alright cantrip seems like the best out of these otherwise unimpressive looking cards. At this point, I'm trying to find more late game threats and I go with Blightmaker. While I don't know what the escalating stains are, and unfortunately I'm unable to check in the client, I imagine it can't be a downside for me, and if it is, I hope it's not too big of a downside. For the final few picks, I'm just trying to find alright cards to close out the draft. For Vessel of Harmony, even though I don't know what balance is, so I thought to pick it just so I could learn more about the game, even if it's not the best for my general draft game plan. Out of these next four, Steadfast Protector seems alright since it's fast stats for 5 resources. Since I'm near the end of my draft, I decided if I want to pick up the least worst card of the 4 or use one of my rerolls. I am deciding to use a reroll since the draft is almost over and I better use it or lose it. Last Sleeper seems like it might be a good snap pick since it works well with my commander and can be a strong mid-game threat. Then I go with Yuan-Shi's Wrath since even though it's counterintuitive to the aggressive plan I'm going for, if I lose control of the board early on, this could be a cheap way to turn around and redevelop afterwards. Then again, I'm stuck between picking a Demon of Solitude or another Raise Dead, so I go with Demon of Solitude since having multiple copies at this point would be pretty funny. And for my final pick, I go with Va-Nash in case I lose my Devil of Despair and I need to re-enable my discard engine. Anyways, that's it for the draft. I hope you guys enjoyed. Tomorrow I'll be uploading my match versus Ben, and the day afterwards, my match versus Nick. See you then.